Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's event, Unleashing the Power of AWS, Mastering Data Storage. Presenting today's topic is Robert Hallis. Robert is a dedicated software professional with demonstrated results in the creation of mission-critical enterprise applications for a variety of clients. He possesses 10 years of experience and has given hands-on technical solutions with a verified track record of designing and implementing secure, reliable, scalable, highly available, fault-tolerant, mission-critical enterprise applications. His key focus areas are on AWS, solution architecture, integration and deployment, and cloud migration. Being a highly motivated and performance-driven software professional, he's the best fit for all types of learners, including the novice as well as experienced professionals. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the Cloud Practice Area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session will cover the groundbreaking capabilities of data storage and their transformative potential. This masterclass has been designed to discover AWS data storage solutions and the pivotal role played by S3 in empowering data professionals. In addition, participants will gain practical insights on how to integrate these advanced data storage technologies into their workflows, enhancing efficiency and innovation in their respective fields. And now I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome to another masterclass. Today we are going to be talking about data storage on AWS and how you can master your data storage. Because as we look into working in just any environment, any domain, the most important thing at the end of the day is going to be your data. Data is always something that we want to make sure we have good control of. We don't want to lose data. We don't want to have our data go into the wrong hands. We have lots of laws in managing our data. So the question that we want to answer today is, how can I control and work with my data on AWS? So my name is Rob Hales. I'm an authorized Amazon instructor. I've been teaching for the last five years, and I'm based in the United States and working here with Netcom Learning. We're very happy to have you all here today. If you're interested in this topic and we don't go deep enough for you, great. This masterclass is designed as a taste, a sample of what we offer here at Netcom Learning. So as you can see here below, please feel free to go to netcomlearning.com, send us a message, or send an email to aws@netcomlearning.com, and we would be happy to help get you the in-depth dive that you need on any topic, whether it is with AWS, Google, Cisco, Azure, and so much more. But let's jump into today's agenda. What are we going to be working with today? So today, obviously, we are going to be working with data. And so we want to know, what does data on AWS look like? What's available? What do we have to utilize? And we're going to go over some of those products. We're going to go over S3, or our simple storage service, and our more archival storage service, S3 Glacier. We'll then get into our block storage, Elastic Block Storage, or EBS. And then finally, we'll end with disaster recovery on AWS. I would invite you that throughout the program, please feel free to ask questions. I will be answering a couple of questions at the end. If you're watching this after, or if you have questions come up after watching this, please feel free again. Message us at aws@netcomlearning.com, or go to netcomlearning.com and feel free to reach out to our sales representatives, and we can help answer any questions that you might have. Now, with that, let's get started on data on AWS. Now, before we do that, we have to ask ourselves a big question. Maybe you're new into the tech industry. Maybe you're used to working with more on-prem. Well, what the heck is AWS? So in case you're brand new, AWS is Amazon Web Services. And what this is a public cloud provider, meaning we at Amazon offer you resources such as networking, storage, compute, AI, and so much more available for you to utilize. And this is available to the public. So whether you are a small shop with one or two employees, or whether you're an enterprise making billions of dollars a year, Amazon can help meet your needs. So why AWS though? AWS is the largest cloud provider, making up over a third of the entire market share. There are over 200 specialized products for you that have been worked on and perfected since AWS started back in 2006. So Amazon is one of the oldest and longest lasting cloud providers that we have out there. If you'd like to learn more, we definitely go over a lot more in our cloud practitioner classes and our architecting courses as well. So great. I know that AWS is this cloud provider. Fantastic. Well, how do I store data on AWS? And the answer is it depends. Well, what kind of data are you trying to store? Um, how do you want to access it? How do you want it to be accessed? And so in this course, we're going to focus on unstructured data. So normally we look at there's lots of different types. You've got structured data, which is what we would utilize for things like SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL, or semi-structured, which would be more of like a NoSQL option. But we're not focusing on databases for this masterclass. Please feel free, come back. We will have other masterclasses about databases, but this one we want to focus on primarily our unstructured data, right? Our files, our PDFs, right? Things that don't necessarily have the same logic that we would see hosted in a database. And with that, there's three main ways that we're going to store data on AWS. As you can see, we have block data, file, and object. Well, let's dig into these just a little bit deeper. So what is block storage? Block storage is where I'm going to set a file or whatever it is onto my computer. Block storage, we break it up into equal size pieces called blocks. This is very fundamental. If you're like, Robert, I've never heard or used block storage before, I promise you, you have. If you use a hard disk drive on your computer or a solid state drive, guess what? That's utilizing block storage. This is the fundamental level. So if you only need one or maybe a couple of resources to access this data, this is where we're going to use block storage. And there's a couple of ways that we can utilize block storage. We have EC2 local storage, and that's where we're going to keep your data on the physical host that your virtual machine is being hosted on. This is good, but this is ephemeral, meaning you turn off your EC2 instance or it restarts, anything like that, you lose your data. If you want more persistent storage, we're going to utilize Elastic Block Storage or EBS. Don't worry. We're going to talk more about EBS later when we get into our EBS section. So we understand now block storage. It's going to be the fundamental layer. But what happens if I need to spread data to a number of instances? I'm sure some of us have worked with a company or multiple companies where there was a weird Z drive or Z drive or a Y drive, something that wasn't just a normal C drive. That generally is going to be representative of a file service. And a file service is going to be a system of folders and files organized to be used by a lot of different users. And so with this, we have really a lot of different options within AWS to utilize file storage. But Robert, I didn't see that in the agenda that we were going to talk about file storage. We're not in this particular master class. We just don't have that much time. But if you are looking for a file service, we do have a lot of really cool products. We have Elastic File Storage or EFS. If you want to use something like NSF v4 and so you're utilizing Linux more than likely and need to give access to hundreds or thousands of different instances, EFS is fantastic. If we want something more commercial level, this is where FSX comes in. FSX is another Amazon managed product, but it comes in different flavors, such as NetApp. So if you're utilizing NetApp, great. There is a almost first party provider for you. Well, Robert, I use Windows and we utilize SMB for our file protocol. Great. FSX on Windows is going to be the tool for you. And if you utilize Open ZFS or ZFS, then FSX with Open ZFS is going to be the tool for you. There is one more, FSX Luster, which uses NFS v4, but it can handle much more traffic and throughput. And this is really good if we're doing things like machine learning in AI. We are not going to go much deeper than this with file storage. So if you want to learn more, again, please contact us. We are happy to help and get you this more information. And we have a lot of really great instructors here at Netcom that can help you. Not just myself, but we have a lot of really good instructors, and we're looking forward to helping you. Now, the one that we're going to focus on a lot today is going to be object storage. Now, object storage is a little different. Block storage, we broke things up into itty-bitty pieces and stored it onto our hard drive. File storage, we organized our files into a folder family, or a family of folders, excuse me, and we created order through that. Object storage is different. Object storage, we're going to take your file, right? Whatever it is, right? An Excel spreadsheet, a Google Doc, or a picture of your cat. And what we're going to do is we're going to assign a key to secure it and metadata about the file you put. And once we do that, it then becomes an object. Well, Robert, who utilizes that? I do. You do. If you utilize Facebook or Instagram, OneDrive, or anything where you upload a file or image or whatever you have into the cloud, it is more than likely an object. Now, object storage is really good because it's very, very, very cost effective. And so on Amazon, we have a really cool tool called S3. And if we need to store data for quite a bit of time, we have S3 Glacier, right? Just the name makes you shiver a little bit. So what is S3? That is exactly what we're going to talk about here in our next section. So S3 is a really cool tool. It is very versatile and highly durable. But what is S3? Like we mentioned, it's object storage. And so why do I want this? It's very cost effective and very, very flexible. So what's in it for me? Why should I care about S3? It seems like this isn't something I can use. On the contrary, S3 is phenomenal in that its flexibility allows us to do a lot of cool things like host our logs in S3 for very cheap. Being able to store backups. So if we wanted to recover a image of a disk, we can store that in S3 and recreate a brand new instance like that. You want to be able to have users store massive amounts of data? S3. Well, Robert, how much can I fit into an S3 anything? Well, when we put things into S3, we put them into buckets. So that's why we have a giant green bucket right here, right? So these buckets are infinite. Infinite, Rob? Infinite. You can put however much data you need into a singular S3. Robert, I've got petabytes of data. There's no way. Yes, there is a way. You just simply move your data into an S3 bucket. I don't care if you've got kilobytes or if you've got petabytes. You can put it into an S3 bucket. Now, there are limitations. Okay, so it's not really infinite. We can store whatever we want, but what we can't do is we can't put anything in there over 5 terabytes. Okay, so these are really big. They are. And so we can host web applications, we can archive data, we can use this for hosting massive amounts of data for machine learning, and we can do this very, very cost effectively. And we're talking maybe a couple of cents per gigabyte. Maybe. Of course, there's other billing things, but we're not going to focus on that right now. What I do want to focus on is that we're going to put objects into these buckets. And again, these buckets can hold as much as you want. And buckets can do really cool things. We even have different kinds of buckets. We have buckets that are made just for directories. We have buckets, that are made to help us search our metadata, right? So tabular buckets, we got them. Now, when I put things into a bucket, how do I know how can I access this data, right? How much am I going to pay for these buckets? Well, that's the cool thing. When we're putting objects into the buckets, we pay depending on the class. Now in S3, we have 3 classes in our standard S3. We have standard. This is for frequently accessed data. So if you're utilizing this maybe once a day, multiple times a day, or if you're doing something maybe even like once a month, or a little more than once a month, then standard is going to be the one for you. With it, we pay for our storage, but we don't have to worry about our retrieval. Our retrieval is going to be extremely minimal. Now, our data is also going to be in S3 very durable. What does durable mean, Rob? It means even if S3 goes down, so not available, when S3 comes back, your data is 99.999999999% likely to be there. It has 11 nines of durability. How does this happen? We have zonal replication with our S3 standard, meaning that when you upload your object, let's say it's a picture of a cat, that picture of the cat is going to be replicated among the different availability zones within that singular region. If you don't know what those are, don't worry. We have other master classes and full-time classes where we go into more depth about that. So with this zonal replication, it ensures that even if there's an issue with one of the copies, there's still several copies that are available that are up, running, and available for you to access. And how quickly can I access? You're going to get milliseconds to your first byte. So what that translates to is instantaneous access to whatever you put in an S3 standard bucket. Now, the problem with S3 standard is if I don't use it that often, it can be very expensive, right? Now, this is a relative term, expensive. So now this is where we go into our standard IA. What does IA mean? Are we talking about Iowa? No, we're not talking about the great state of Iowa. We are talking about standard infrequent access. This is for data that we're only going to use maybe like once a month, maybe. So those archives, maybe disk backups that we have, maybe or a financial report. We don't need to look at it every single day. So this is good for infrequent access about once a month or less. It also has zonal replication and millisecond access to your information. So when you do need it, we can get it just like that. Now, there's a little bit of a trade-off here. With standard IA, it is going to be, and I'm going to do this lightly. Oh, hold on. There we go. Let's get $2 signs. It's going to be a little bit cheaper to store, but we're going to pay a little bit more to retrieve and to store data there. And to put data, excuse me. The store is going to be cheaper, but to put it there is going to cost a little bit. All right, that seems pretty great. But Rob, what's the difference between standard IA and standard IA one zone? Well, like the name hints at, right? It's going to just put your data into one zone. Normally, buckets are going to be regional and replicate across your different availability zones. In one zone, we don't do that. So it's going to be a little bit cheaper because we're not replicating right across all these different zones. But again, this is still good for things that you're going to access maybe once a month. So why would I use this? Maybe you have a website and you want to store the web version or the mobile version or mobile size version of your pictures. Do you care if you lose the copies? No, they're not as important. So we can put them into standard IA one zone if we're not really needing the data and we're looking more for cost benefits. But Robert, I have a problem. What if I don't know what to choose? Right? I've got data that's sometimes accessed daily and sometimes accessed once every quarter or less. What can I do? Well, you could go in and change as you recognize objects are being utilized more. You can manually move from standard to standard IA. But that sounds hard. That sounds like a lot of work. Does anybody here want to do that job? Manually move objects when we potentially have millions of different objects? No, that's insanity. So Amazon recently has come up with another solution, intelligent tiering. So what intelligent tiering does is, well, kind of like the name implies, it's going to move your objects between frequent and infrequent access tiers. So it'll move between standard IA, and we'll talk about the other ones here in just a second. So if your data is constantly changing on how often it's being viewed or utilized, intelligent tiering is the way to go. Well, does it cost extra? It does. It costs on average about 5 cents for every 10,000 objects. But think about the thousands even millions that have been saved over the years utilizing intelligent tiering. If your data is going to be changing, that 5 cents for 10,000 objects could save you a lot of money on S3. And at the end of the day, we're here to make money, right? Every business is in the business of making money. And the more we can save, the more we can pocket or pass those savings on to our customers, allowing us to make a little bit more money ourselves. All right. So this is S3 standard. Now, what happens if I need to store things for a much longer period? What about information that isn't used as often? Let's say I've got a medical report. Well, it was done a couple months ago. Do you check up on your x-rays after several months? Probably not. Once you're healed up, we might not use it ever again, but we need to store it. What about tax information that we need to store? Or what about logs? We might not be utilizing the logs after the first month. So we need a place to archive our data. And to do this, we're going to use S3 Glacier. All right. So thank you guys so much for being here. So what we're going to do, let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll get started on the remaining topics after the break.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
Okay. And welcome back, everyone. All right, let's continue where we left off. So we need a place to archive our data. And to do this, we're going to use S3 Glacier. So Rob, is there really a difference between S3 and S3 Glacier? Yes, no. Yes, in that there is a difference with our API calls. There are different API calls between S3 and S3 Glacier. But when we're working in the portal, not really. There's one console where you can access S3 and S3 Glacier. So S3 Glacier also has different options available. It has instant retrieval, flexible retrieval, and deep archive. So instant retrieval is almost a continuation of what we saw with S3 Standard, where millisecond access to the first byte, zonal replication, and 90-day. This is meant for things that we only use once a quarter or less. Now, if I'm a doctor's office, I may need to see a record quickly. If we have somebody hacking in, we need to be able to access those logs immediately. Instant retrieval is the answer to that, because before instant retrieval, we only had what we called Glacier, and so it was just called S3 Glacier Retrieval. Or X3, sorry, it was just S3 Glacier. And that's all it was. And with flexible retrieval, this is again the original S3 Glacier. There's a couple of different ways that we can utilize flexible retrieval, right? Hence flexible. You had expedited, which could get you your first byte within minutes. In case of those emergencies where we needed data right now. But maybe we don't. Maybe we just want to get it whenever it's available. Well, there's the standard retrieval, which it could take a couple of minutes. It could take a couple of hours, just depending. And then there is our bulk retrieval. So if we need to pull massive amounts of data, right? That breach, that security breach, we need to pull gigabytes of logs. Great. With bulk retrieval, we can retrieve them, again, within hours. And it's great. Now, the cool thing about instant retrieval and flexible retrieval is that this is extremely cost effective. So we had $3 signs and $2 signs here. If I can get my pen to work, there we go. We have $1 sign, right? So this is very, very cost effective. We're talking not even a penny a gigabyte, of course, depending region to region. Cost fluctuates. If you want to know the cost, please go to the pricing calculator. The pricing calculator will show you not exactly, but will give you a good estimate of what you'll spend on AWS on a variety of different products. Okay, back to our scheduled program. We then have Deep Archive. This is very, very cheap. We're not going to put a dollar sign. We're going to put a cent. All right, so this is the cheapest option. Now, Robert, if this is the cheapest option, why don't we use this? Because access to your first byte can take up to 12 hours. That's a whole business day gone trying to retrieve an object. While it costs next to nothing to store, it costs a very pretty penny to retrieve. Note, across the board here, we're going to find that retrieval is going to be very expensive. It's there to offset the very cheap cost of storing it. So if you need to absolutely store something, you want to use Glacier. Now, whether you want it to be available immediately or you have a little bit of flexibility will depend on if you use instant or flexible retrieval. But if I need to keep onto something for years, something that I'm not going to access very often. So looking at hospitals, in the US, we have HIPAA, and HIPAA requires that we keep all relevant medical data for the life of the patient plus one, which generally translates to 79 to 80 years. That's a long time to store. So with Deep Archive, you can store that data for very, very little. And if we need it, great. We tell our customers, hey, we'll get it to you next day or next 2 days, and then we can retrieve it. But again, retrieval is very expensive and it will take time. All right, fantastic. So that is S3 and S3 Glacier. If you're going to utilize AWS, there's a very, very strong chance that you are going to be utilizing S3 to some degree. Now, let's go back to something a little smaller, EBS. So this is my elastic block storage. Basically, EBS is just a hard drive. Now, I don't want to downplay it and make it seem like it's not important. It is. It is extremely important. But this is used more if I want to utilize data on an EC2 instance and I need to access it much more quickly, because can EC2 access an S3 bucket? Yeah, absolutely. But then we have to pay for the networking, we have to pay for the call, and we have to pay for utilizing it, right? On EBS, we have it right there. It's in the same availability zone, it's accessing, it's just like using a hard disk drive. So EBS offers a couple of different volume types for you. Now, if you noticed here, and you're a pretty smart cookie, you saw that we have two types. We've got our solid state drives and our hard disk drives. That's what we're going to focus on today, just those two general types, and we'll get into the differences here in a second. If I want to use an EBS volume to hold my boot and make it my boot disk, it has to be a solid state drive. Why? Amazon said so. Simple as that. So with EBS, when you're choosing, there are, like we saw, two different types, my SSDs and my hard disk drives. Well, which should I use? Well, we broke these solid state drives and hard disk drives into two different camps within each one. So in my solid state, we have general purpose and provision IOPS. General purpose is just like its name entails. It is used for basics. You want to host a website, you want to utilize a small database, you want to do basic processing of information. Great. General purpose is fantastic. You'll see that it has a lot of flexibility in its storage. Most you can do for any of these is going to be 16 terabytes. But it's good. It's got decent performance and it's got decent storage. It's a good overall pick. But Robert, I'm running a mission critical workload. I need to be able to pull data very quickly. We're going to be doing thousands of I/O operations every single second. We need something that can perform at high levels. This is where we have provision IOPS. Now, because it is something that's more performance intense, it also costs a little bit more. And so if you do need performance, then you want to choose Provision IOPS. Now, Robert, can I use one of each? Absolutely. Just like with your laptop you're watching this on, you can have multiple hard drives. That's fine. You can absolutely do that. There are limits per EC2 or my Elastic Compute Cloud that varies greatly from EC2 instance to EC2 instance. But yeah, you can have multiple EBS volumes on most EC2 instances. But what if I don't need something intense? What if I need something that, if I'm doing a small data warehouse, not an insane amount of traffic, but decent enough, and I want to save money? Well, this is where we get into our hard disk drives. These are going to be significantly more cheaper than my solid state drives. So my throughput optimized is good if I know I'm going to be utilizing it relatively frequently, but still want to save a little bit of extra money. Now, if I need to archive data and I want to hold it to a single EC2 instance, this is where my cold hard disk drives are. This is extremely cost effective, but it does not have the same performance as any of the other EBS volume types. So in general, if you're looking for something more cost effective, but still pretty but still has good performance, great performance, we're going to have general purpose and provision IOPS. If we're looking for something that you do need high performance, provision IOPS alone. If you need something more cost effective, we've got my throughput and my cold hard disk drives available. All right. So we've gone over S3, and we talked about how useful S3 is and S3 Glacier. And we just finished talking about EBS. Again, if you are watching this, you're like, Rob, I know this. I want to get deeper dive into this. Or you're watching this and you're like, this is fascinating and I want to know more. Let us know, right? The whole point of this masterclass is to give you an introduction to the topic. But in our in-depth classes, we can answer any and all questions you have. And we can answer them in your language. So if you speak Spanish, German, French, we do offer classes in these different languages. Now, going back to our topic. Our topic wasn't what storage options do we have available, right? No. Our topic was unleashing the power of AWS, mastering our data storage. So now we figured out which type of storage do we need for different circumstances. How do I utilize it and perfect my utilization? Well, one of the big ways is through backup and recovery. So Werner Vogel says everything is going to fail. And who's Werner Vogel? He's the CTO of AWS. Everything is going to fail. Well, that's super cheery. That's not a great way to sell your product, but it is. Planning for failure is going to be the key in making sure that we don't fail. If we plan for failure, we will never fail because we have backups. We have an idea of what to do when things happen. Now, if you're a mom and pop store, right, it's just one or two employees like a startup, great. disaster recovery might be fairly simple. It might be as simple as, oh, we're just going to create a brand new EC2 instance or an entire new environment, and we're just going to do it from scratch. We'll be down for maybe a few hours or a couple of days, but that won't have as great of an impact. What if you're not? What if you're a mid-sized company? What if you're an enterprise? We can't be down for very long. We need to ensure that we maybe only have a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds of downtime. How can we ensure our backups are taken care of, that we can recover quickly? And there are lots of different ways to do disaster recovery, but in this particular course, I want to focus on one really cool Amazon product, AWS Backup. AWS Backup is probably one of the coolest solutions there are on Amazon. Why do you say that, Rob? There's over 200 products. Why backup? Backup is a way to centralize the backing up of all of your services. You're working with files, you're working with EBS, you're working with S3, you're working on-prem, you're working in the cloud. I don't care. Backup will handle it for you. And the best part, it's free. It's free. You just pay for the storage you're going to utilize. And it will ensure a timely backup based on what you want it to do. You can say, okay, back it up at midnight if the tags say project as command, right? Fantastic. Backup ensures that we can automate a normally difficult and complex task. And normally, if something is simplified, there's going to be trade-offs. Well, it's cheap and it's automated. That probably means it's not very secure. Nope, not in Amazon. It's definitely going to be secure. There are different certifications. You can ensure that it meets the certifications that you need. But we're going to do things like encrypt your data, ensure that it's protected at rest, and potentially even in motion. Now, whether you want to back up across a single region, multiple regions, or across multiple accounts, we can do it. So if you're an organization with 1,000 accounts, AWS Backup is your best friend. All right. So with that, we are rapidly running out of time. I would love to spend so much more time and go into these topics. And so let's go over what we talked about. We talked about what is AWS. How can we store our data on AWS? We talked about block storage. And to use block storage, what was that tool called again? EBS. Fantastic. We're going to do a little bit of like that Dora the Explorer here, right? So how do we store things in file? Right, with EFS or FSX. And how do we work with objects? Absolutely, S3, and S3 Glacier for archive. And how do we ensure that all of that is backed up and that our data is kept safe and secure while doing that? AWS Backup. Again, this is just a taste of what we have here on AWS. I recognize that this is just that little small sample spoon that they give you in the ice cream shop. If you want more, please contact us at netcomlearning.com or at aws@netcomlearning.com. Feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. My name is, again, Robert Hales, and I am happy to help answer any and all questions and find you classes that meet your needs. I want to make sure that you're ready to run these stored solutions in your company with confidence, right? And if you're a decision maker and you're like, why do I need training? Because Can you afford to have employees that are not trained, that waste time trying to figure things out? No. So, with that, let's hop into questions.
Thank you, Robert. That was most informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And now I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Remy, our vendor manager, to introduce our promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Jeremy, for this insightful session. I believe everyone must have learned something new today or would have been able to brush up their skills around the fundamentals of AWS Cloud. I would quickly like to take you through some of our hand-picked resources, which we think will immensely help in accelerating your AWS Cloud scaling journey. Well, this document here of sharing on my screen, this has been shared with you all in the handout section of GoToWebinar panel. You can download this document and access all the resources and browse all the offerings we have curated for you. So first up here is the list of our recommended courses, which we feel will best suit your learning journey after attending our masterclass. All these courses are hyperlinked. Feel free to go through them post-event and check out the course descriptions, prerequisites, and the value it can add to you and your team's skill sets. Additionally, we have curated a blend of resources, including our upcoming and on-demand events as well as informative and educational blogs. You can make the most of these resources to gain extensive knowledge on the AWS topics they cover. Next up, I am thrilled to introduce the AWS Skill Builder, a dynamic learning center featuring over 600 digital courses crafted by AWS experts. I'm sure most of you must be aware of AWS Skill Builder. What is unique about this platform are the engaging game-based learning experiences. So through AWS Cloud Quest and team-based competitions on AWS Jam events. If you're hearing these terms, Cloud Quest and Jam events for the first time, I would highly recommend you click on this button and you go to our AWS Skill Builder page. I'm sure you will be amazed to see what all the Skill Builder has to offer. They have set off these gaming experiences in practical real world scenarios, which makes it so easy to understand concepts, technology, and processes. And it makes it so interesting for the learner. And for organizations, it saves a lot of time on employee skilling and ultimately enhancing the efficiency and productivity. As someone at Netcom who values continuous learning, I'm confident that AWS Skill Builder will be a game changer for any organization looking to upskill their workforce on AWS technologies. I encourage you to explore the diverse range of digital courses and experiences it offers. You can simply, as I said, click on this button right here, learn more, and you can explore more about the Skill Builder and the pricing aspect of this. Moving on to the next offering. Our free AWS e-learning courses follow a self-paced training model wherein you get the liberty of accessing extensive course-related videos that are delivered by the AWS subject matter experts on the go. So these videos cover the availability on the device of your choice, so you can access them from your laptop, your tablet, or from your phone as well. There are more than 280 videos covering various AWS topics explained in a very easy to comprehend language. You can simply sign up for free, watch these videos, and make the most out of them. Also, here I would like to inform you that this session is being recorded. So, in case you want to refer back to any of the topics that the trainer might have covered in today's session, we will be sharing the recording link with you through emails, and also you can access it here by clicking on this button. So you have to download this handout for that. And then if you want to revisit any topic, you can just simply click on the access recording and you can revisit the session and learn at your own pace. Now, apart from our virtual sessions, you can also catch the relevant updates related to IT and business trainings on our social media handles. So please feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest updates. Our official pages and channels are linked here on the icons. Finally, if you have any suggestions regarding the topics you would like us to cover in our upcoming webinars and masterclasses, please don't hesitate to send us a direct message, or you can leave a comment on our social media posts, or you can just simply email us at info@netcomlearning.com. We would definitely try to come up with the sessions on your suggested topics. Thank you once again for joining us today. Over to you, Tracy.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Remy. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. What are the different types of storage services offered by AWS, and how do they differ from each other?
Yeah, that's great. That's what we were just talking about throughout this course. We talked about that there's my block, file, and object storage. And depending on whether we want to use it for a singular instance, have access to multiple instances, or basically give access to a wide variety like the internet or to other services, that's where object storage is really going to shine. Excuse me. And this is again for our unstructured data primarily. There's so much more when we get into our structured and semi-structured that I would invite you to see in our architecting course or in any of our storage courses.
How does Amazon's S3 intelligent tier work, and what are the benefits of using it?
So basically how S3 intelligent tiering works is it's going to look at the history of we're going to take a look at the history of how your data is being accessed. And then what we're going to do is Amazon is then going to say, okay, based off the access, is this going to reach a tipping point where it's cheaper to be in standard, or is it cheaper to be in standard IA or Glacier instant retrieval? And in doing this, the main benefit is we get to work with a dynamic storage and being able to store it in a layer that makes the most sense. So fantastic question.
What are the key differences between Amazon EBS volumes and local storage, and when should each be used?
So the difference is persistent and ephemeral. Well, what does that mean, Rob? Persistent means that the data is going to be there. You can delete an EC2 instance. You can delete or shut down your EC2 instance, and EBS volumes will keep your data. Local storage, generally speaking, once you delete your EC2 instance, you restart it, stop it, anything, you lose your data right then. Now, if I'm doing something like a scratch or a cache, it might not matter that much to use ephemeral data, and it might be more beneficial because the local storage is going to be you're going to be able to pull that data much more quickly because it's right there. You're going to have great performance. But if you need that persistency, you need EBS.
How does AWS Backup integrate with other AWS services, and what are its main features?
That's a good question. So backup, basically what we're going to do is we're going to show backup, hey, these are the services we want to integrate. And then by tags, we're going to allow backup to identify resources that it can back up during a certain set schedule. And we'll go into a lot more depth during our course.
What are the best practices for optimizing costs on AWS?
And for that, we have an entire class, a couple classes actually, on just how to do that. Basically, you need to look at, do I need to move data around a lot? Do I need to be cross-regional? Do I need to be across multiple accounts? At the end of the day, it's a very complex question. So at the end of the day, the biggest question is, how am I planning on utilizing this data, and what's the cheapest way to do that? And I know that sounds very vague, and it is vague because the answer is it depends.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave this session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.